Welcome to the Rise of Cryptocurrencies show. This is Lior Gans. My special guest today is Tai Zen. You know him from cryptocurrency.market, where Leon Fu and him do great work when it comes to educating people on cryptocurrencies and opportunities in the blockchain sector. He has been one of the best investors in the sector, and I greatly appreciate him coming on. He's a good guy. How are you today, Tai?
Doing great, Lior. Thanks for having me on your show today.
Hey, thanks for taking the time to be here, and you're the best person to ask the questions that I've drafted for today. Let's start with Russia and their crypto ruble, as it's been called. Basically, it's their will to create a government issue cryptocurrency on their own blockchain. The advantages are clear on their part, being that they can exercise more control, of course. Another country that's taken the baton and leading the blockchain charge is Georgia, which sits in Eurasia. It's a small country. It's beautiful in terms of landscape. I've done a 4x4 Jeep tour there. It was magnificent, and they've harnessed the power of blockchain to revolutionize their land title ownership process. Instead of recording it for a fee of about $50 to $100 and having to wait 24 hours for the deed to become official and having to go to the county clerk and all that stuff, they want to do it instantly with about a 10 cents fee using blockchain and instantaneous recording. The Singaporean government wants to put their dollar on the blockchain as well to attract capital and attract great minds over there to that amazing island of prosperity that they have. And what would be the role, Tai, of government in generating competing cryptocurrency to the non-governmental ones that we have today? And what is the likelihood of them being adopted by the public? Just your opinion.
Okay, that's a good question. And before I answer that question, I just want to share just a really quick history of cryptocurrencies, blockchains, Bitcoin, things like that with your audience. Is that when Bitcoin first came out and was released to the public by Satoshi Nakamoto in January of 2009, the first group of people that adopted cryptocurrencies were the cypherpunks, the technologists, the cryptographers. Okay, and then the second group of people that jumped on board Bitcoin was the anarchists. The people that believe we do not need a government to operate, right? And then the third group were the illegal, the black market people, like the drug dealers and the drug lords. And then the next group after that were the traders and investors, like you and I came in after that. And then after that, then the hedge funds and other folks like that came in. So the anarchists, if you ask the anarchists, they would believe that the government issued cryptocurrency will not have a chance to survive in the public. I have a slightly different opinion about that. I believe that if Russia or the U.S. or China or Singapore or any major country comes out with a cryptocurrency, I believe that it will actually do very well. And here are my reasons for that thought. The reason is because,
to put it in other words, the government can persuade the public using their marketing arms, the mainstream media, their law, basically, and the ingrained nature of the populace to believe inherently their elected officials.
Both. Obviously, the one where they have a limited supply, like Bitcoin does, will have more value. But even if the government issues a cryptocurrency that does not have an infinite supply, and they get to control the output, the supply of it, it will still be more popular than a lot of there's a chance that it can be more popular than the cryptocurrencies that exist in the open market right now in the public. And here's the reason why. No matter what we say, or when I say we're talking about the early adopters of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. No matter what we say, we are just still a very, very minute and small percentage of the population that have adopted cryptocurrencies early. The majority of the population still trusts in the government. Even though they say it, it's U.S., Russia, or China, a government-based cryptocurrency, the general public is still going to believe that more, in my opinion. Right now, things can change next month or next year, but as of today, at the end of 2017, I would say that if a government was to issue something like a crypto ruble, like in ruble in Russia, it would still gain faster adoption. And one of the main reasons that it will gain faster adoption is because the people know that if the government issues it, it's not going to be a scam. Well, even if it is, the people will still trust in their government that it's not intended to rip the public off. Okay,
there's still inertia and habit there towards the government, and obviously the government has more. If I may add to your point, what I think you're trying to say is that the government has more marketing ability to say, "Hey, our currency is safe. Don't worry about it." They can use the media. They can use of information that will legitimize their currency. Obviously, it's a sort of a propaganda and marketing. But what you're saying is ultimately it will work.
Yeah, if you have let's say the chairman of the Federal Reserve in America or in Europe or in Russia, if you have a huge bank chairman come out and say that this is the official cryptocurrency of this country, that alone has a ton more weight than all the cryptocurrency developers combined right now, in my opinion, right? If President Putin comes out and says that this is the official cryptocurrency of Russia, his words alone have more weight than all the cryptocurrency teams and projects and everyone combined. There's no way that their words combined are going to have more weight behind it than the president of Russia or the president of China or the president of the United States. There's no way. Not at this point. It could change next year. It could change next month. But as of right now, I don't see that. So one reason that it will have a very good chance of doing well is because of the credibility, the reputation of the government. And second is the second reason why I say that is that the government of these countries already have a governance process. And let me just make it clear what a governance process is. A governance process is a process in which a large number of human beings can come to a final decision and implement it. So, for example, we have a large number of people that voted for President Trump in the United States, and we had a large number of people that voted for Hillary Clinton. However, almost half the country, I think, 40, 45, I don't know the exact numbers, but I know that there's over 40% of the country wanted Hillary as president. And despite the fact that they wanted Hillary as president, and it did not end that way, the country still moves forward with the winner, which is Donald Trump as president. So that final decision and implementation process is called a governance. And right now, in cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, it does not have a governance process. There's a big difference between consensus on the agreement of what transactions are transpired, but that's not, to me, that's not a governance process. Okay, submitting the what's known as a BIP proposal, which is BIP stands for Bitcoin in Bitcoin something proposal. I forgot just right off the top of my head. I just had a brain freeze. Okay. What this BIP process does is it just makes improvements to the Bitcoin software. It does not mean that it's going to actually get implemented, right? So a government-based cryptocurrency, if they see something needs to be updated or changed or modified, they can quickly come to that decision and implement it right away. At least that there's a final, maybe it may not be quick, but there is a final decision-making process. Whereas we can look at Bitcoin, where because they do not have a final decision and implementation process, they have been trying to update the software to include what's called the SegWit update, and that took over 3 years. And now the Bitcoin community is fractured into 3 or 4 communities now because there was a lack of final decision and implementation process otherwise known as a governance process. And when you mention that to the Bitcoin community, they think that when we talk about a governance process, they think that Bitcoin needs a government, and that's not true. A governance process can involve a government, but it is not. It's not necessary. It's not a requirement. It's just a governance process is a final decision and implementation process. And the second reason that I believe that a government issue cryptocurrency has a strong chance of success in the market is because the government already has a final decision, a voting and final decision and implementation process. So if anything that needs to get changed or updated, there is a process for that to happen. Oh, by the way, the BIP process that I mentioned earlier, it stands for Bitcoin Improvement Proposal. I kept thinking Bitcoin Investment Proposal, but it's not. It's Bitcoin Improvement Proposal. So that's just a proposal. It doesn't mean that it has to get implemented. Just because you submit a proposal to make Bitcoin better, there's no guarantee that it's going to get implemented.
You raise many important points, the most important of them, in my opinion, being that in a democracy, we have to settle and compromise in order to progress by the vote of the majority, while in a decentralized system, there's less incentive to compromise and more incentive to just strike out on your own if you can't come to terms upon the thing that you're disagreeing on. What are the top two cryptocurrencies when it comes to governance?
Process. Yeah, like for example, that's why we made we took position in cryptocurrencies such as Dash and Decred on our team, because those are the top two governance based cryptocurrencies. So they recognized this problem early on, 2-3 years ago. They recognized that the lack of a governance process was preventing Bitcoin from scaling and gaining mainstream adoption. So they implemented it into their blockchain, already. So that way, that's the reason why, as we're talking right now, in the last 10 days or so, the price of the Dash token, skyrocketed from $300 to $400 all the way past $600, because the market sees value in that. The market can see that the lack of a governance process is hurting some of these cryptocurrencies, and the ones that are able to solve that problem is being rewarded by the markets for it. Like, for example, Decred was only $1 at the beginning of 2017, and now it's past $50. So we've been making the calls on that on our channel that, hey, you know what? The lack of a governance process is killing some of these cryptocurrencies, and we're making bets on the ones that do have it, that it's going to increase in value. So our team got into Dash and Decred at the beginning of 2017, back when it was way less. Back when Decred was $1, and I think Dash was only less than $50 at that time.
Very cool. Do you think that this entire ecosystem is like rising tide lifts all boats when it comes to educating the public about sound money economics? Because now people are beginning to ask questions like, what gives a currency value, and all sorts of other questions. And of course, this is the overwhelming minority that are asking these questions. But are we only now beginning to scratch the surface of this trend to discover what is behind the concept of money and currency?
Yes, absolutely. And that's, if they get a stamp of approval, if a cryptocurrency gets a stamp of approval from the government or is backed by the government, as much as you and I don't like it, as much as you and I may not like it because it goes against the grain and the belief and the origin of cryptocurrencies, the fact is it's going to get more mainstream adoption. And then, if I had a choice between, if you asked me, hey, Ty, would you rather have a cryptocurrency that is based on, that is not controlled by the government, or a cryptocurrency that is controlled by the government, right? I have to ask myself, what is the objective here? Is the objective to get the mainstream media, the mainstream public to use cryptocurrency technologies and blockchain technologies? If the answer is yes, then yes, you want the government to issue that and have everyone use that. But if you say that we just want the government to issue so they can start to understand it or something, well, then that may be a different answer. But when it comes to mainstream adoption of blockchain and cryptocurrency technologies, I believe that a lot of things will open up and will benefit more people right now if there's more people using it. Like a lot of the buying and selling of stocks and the clearing and settlement of stocks on Wall Street, a lot of those problems can be eliminated, and a lot of the shenanigans, like the naked shorting, the ability for people to sell stocks that they don't own, right, and that they don't have in their inventory, that's something that can be eliminated just by using the blockchain technology, because now you can't sell something if it's not verifiable on the blockchain.
Sure.
And there's a lot of banking services that can be done, and there's a lot of escrow services that can be done with the blockchain. And like you said, a lot of these countries that are issuing land titles and recording their land titles and stuff to the blockchain, there's more value to the public at this moment. And like I said, anything can change next month and next year. But at the end of 2017 right now, there's more value to the public if they had a blockchain that they can trust, right? And so if the government issues a blockchain or a cryptocurrency and they stand by it, then that is something that that will produce immediate trust in the public to use. Like, I'll give you an example. Like the city that I live in is called Dallas, and I think it's the fourth largest city in America, the fourth largest metropolitan area in America. It's located in the southern part of the United States of America. And when my son was born, I had to go down to the county office and request a copy of his birth certificate, and that cost $25. And when my second child was born, and I went down there again the second time to request a copy of her birth certificate, that was another $25, right? And if that was recorded if the hospital where my kids were born had recorded that birth data and recorded it onto the blockchain, not only would it be public information that I can access without having to pay the $25, but it would cost the hospital less than a penny to record that data into the blockchain.
Well,
now,
sure.
Yeah, and then it's not just birth certificates, but it's also death certificates. Imagine if you graduated, you were born, and your birth date was recorded onto the blockchain with a service such as there's two blockchains that I know of right now, two blockchain projects in the U.S. that I know of right now that are building a historical data recording device to record data into the blockchain. One of them is a project called Factum, and the symbol for that is F as in Foxtrot, C as in Charlie, and T as in Tango. And they are located in the city of Austin, which is located in the state of Texas, and they're building. Right now, they have some contracts with the U.S. government to record data into the blockchain. There's also another project called Tyrion, and the symbol for that is T as in Tango, N as in November, and T as in Tango. And they are doing likewise the same thing, coming up with a process to record data, and especially real estate and property data. It was very, very difficult for me to get a driver's license, go to school, do everything, because the village I grew up in, for one, we did not have like a piece of paper birth certificate because it was a very small village. So imagine if the hospital there or whoever delivered was, the village record keeper, for example, was able to record that information to the blockchain, and I can go back and later on and show the government and agencies that, hey, this is my birth certificate here that's recorded into the blockchain, right?
Sure.
That helps. And the same thing happened. Like when the communists took over the southern part of Vietnam, where my village was at, they confiscated all my family property, and my family had been living there for several generations. So the homes and the houses and the land that belonged to my grandfather, that was left to my father, right? They were confiscated by the government, and then 20, 25 years later, they decided to give it back to its rightful owners. and there were debates in the village of who owned which plot of land. And if that information was originally recorded into the blockchain, then the public can go back into the blockchain and read that information and be able to assess who owned which piece of property.
I want to make a note that I no longer trust governments with money at all. Do you?
Absolutely. I do not trust the government with money either. The question, when you ask me, will a government-issued cryptocurrency be successful? I think that the question should be reworded to what the goal is or the objective is. So if the goal is, hey, will a government-issued cryptocurrency be successful at gaining mainstream adoption by the public? Then the answer is absolutely yes. But if the question is, hey, will a cryptocurrency, a government-issued cryptocurrency, be successful at serving the public, according to its original intention, then the answer is absolutely not. So I think that the answer is based upon what is the objective of why the government is issuing that cryptocurrency. Now, if you ask me, hey, will a government-issued cryptocurrency be successful at allowing the government to maintain a control of their money? The answer is absolutely yes. Because now they're the ones in control of updating that cryptocurrency and not the public. So yes, to suit their objectives, the answer is absolutely yes. But if it was, will a government-issued cryptocurrency be successful at achieving the electronic peer-to-peer cash system that Satoshi originally intended for Bitcoin to be, then the answer is probably not.
Understood. I want to discuss something that's rarely addressed, but I'd love for you to clarify. Once a pre-programmed amount of coins or tokens has been reached and it's maxed out, let's use the Bitcoin's 21 million for example, just because most are familiar with that. What incentivizes miners to keep securing the network, keep verifying transactions on the blockchain if there are no more coins that they're competing for?
Okay, so when Bitcoin was originally created, the inventor of Bitcoin set the limit so that so everyone knows what the exact limit or the exact supply is going to be, and that was there was a computer science reason why he chose 21 million. I don't understand that. I don't 100% understand why he chose 21 million tokens as a total supply, but there's a computer science reason behind it. I read it somewhere in the past and I forgot about it. But every 4 years, the way that these mining simply means processing all the Bitcoin transactions. So every 10 minutes, in case your audience is new to Bitcoin, every 10 minutes a new block of data, of transaction data is added to the Bitcoin public ledger. And that 10-minute block of information is being processed and being calculated and being computed and being encrypted by people known as Bitcoin miners. And the term miner simply means processors. Okay, so if you volunteer your computer to process those Bitcoin transactions, if you are the one that does it first and you did it correctly and you submit it to the network and the network immediately verifies that it's correct, you get rewarded what's known as 50 Bitcoin for that block. And it may take you several hours or a ton of time and computers to process and figure out what the next block is, but it's very easy to confirm it once you do figure it out. It's like if I ask you, hey, what is the square root of 5? It takes a long time for you to figure out that it's 2 point something, but the minute you come up with the answer, I can confirm that answer very rapidly. Okay, so that's how it works. And then every 4 years, the way that the Bitcoin blockchain is designed, every 4 years, that block reward gets cut in half. So in 2009, it was 50 Bitcoins per block rewarded to the miners for volunteering their computers to process all the Bitcoin transactions. And then in 2013, it was cut down to 25 Bitcoins per block. And then in 2017, it got cut down to 12.5 Bitcoins per block. And eventually, there's going to come a time, like you said, where the block rewards are not worthwhile anymore. However, if you go to a place such as bitinfocharts.com, you can look at on the bottom. There's several tabs at the bottom, and if you just select average transaction fee, you'll see that the current average transaction fee for a Bitcoin right now is around a Bitcoin transaction is around $5, which is extremely ridiculously high. In comparison, in 2013, when you and I first bought our first Bitcoin, the transactions were free. So $5 is an astronomically large transaction fee in the world of Bitcoin. And just a few weeks ago, it was up to almost $19 per transaction, which is ridiculously high, okay? And that needs to get fixed. But what happens is after the block rewards are expired, right, what's going to happen is the miners will continue to volunteer their computers to process all the transactions on the Bitcoin network because they will receive the fees for that block. So if there's $30,000 worth of transaction fees inside that block, then the miner who correctly processes that block, encrypts it, and submits it to the network for verification, and it gets accepted into the Bitcoin blockchain, then that miner will receive the $30,000 worth of transaction fees for that block. So the reason why Satoshi Nakamoto invented the system to be like that is so that it continues to incentivize the miners to volunteer their computers to secure the network. So hopefully that explains it. And there's a ton of money to be made by doing that. Now, I also want to tell your audience this, because a lot of times when people get into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency investing, they think that they can just run out there, buy a computer, and set up a miner and get free Bitcoins, you know. Please do not do that. That is a complete waste of time and money. You need to be a software engineer or a hardware engineer to be doing that. That's not something that's easy for the public to do, okay? And you need a ton of, like, near free electricity to be able to do that. So don't, if you have a hard time logging into your computer or rebooting your computer, mining Bitcoins is not for you, okay? Leave that to the specialist.
Ty, what's the best way to be a part of this industry as a career, as a vocation?
Okay, so that is a great question. I wish that on more interviews that people would ask me that question, because that question actually affects a lot more viewers, listeners, and the audience than any other question, because not everyone has the money or the financial resources to jump into investing in cryptocurrencies immediately. Like, I came from a trading background, so when I heard about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, I already have the financial resources to be able to invest in cryptocurrencies. And you are a long-term traditional stock investor, and you've been doing that for a while, so you have the financial resources and experience to be able to take the risk of jumping into investing in cryptocurrencies. But for the majority of the public, they do not have that luxury. They do not have they may not have the financial resources to jump into getting involved in cryptocurrencies right away, or even if they do have the financial resources, they may not have the ability to stomach the risk of such a new asset, okay? And for those people, I would recommend getting involved into the blockchain industry. And there's two major divides in the blockchain industry. One is if you are a software or hardware engineer. If you're a software engineer, then you're golden, because there's massive, there's ungodly amounts of opportunity in the blockchain space if you are a software engineer. Like my business partner, LeonFu.com, he used to be an iOS developer for Dell Computers, and he was getting paid like almost $200,000 a year to be a software engineer for Dell Computers, right? And if he were to go into, he's a senior level software engineer, so if he were to go into the blockchain software engineering space, I mean, he could easily command a $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year income being a blockchain software engineer. Okay, now he's a high-level engineer, software engineer, but for the people who are in the software industry right now, they're a software engineer right now, they're listening to this, I would recommend they learn how to code in blockchain and learn how to code in especially a language known as Solidity, which is what the Ethereum blockchain uses. That's the second most popular cryptocurrency out there on the market. And they can immediately get a $200,000 to $300,000 a year job easily. Even for a junior software engineer, they can easily get a low to mid six-figure income learning how to code in Solidity or in any blockchain language right now. Now, those are the people that are technical and software engineer minded, and they come from a software engineering background. Now, that's the direction that I would recommend they go in. But for the people like myself who are not software engineers and not technical, then the thing that I would do is I would go and work in the other arenas of the blockchain. They need people to help market their projects. They need salespeople. They need marketing people. They need community managers. They need social media managers. There's a lot of opportunities. You can pretty much go to any cryptocurrency blockchain project and look at their careers page, and everyone is hiring. Everyone is hiring. I mean, like, there's $3 billion that came into the blockchain industry, that was poured into the blockchain industry so far this year in 2017, and they are desperately looking for talent and people to help. So whatever arena, whatever area that you are working in the corporate world or in the traditional world, there's almost certainly a position available in the blockchain space. So that's what I would, I would say, like, if I did not have, like, let's say that I was somebody in Vietnam or in Africa and I did not have any money to invest in cryptocurrencies and I wanted to participate in this boom, the first thing I would do is I would jump into their forums and start helping out and answering questions. I would learn let's say that I would go and look at the projects that have money to pay for it, such as Dash or Decred, or projects that have funding. Like, most projects have a marketing budget, right? I would go there and then I would start creating tutorials for that project. I would create, let's say I don't speak English, right? I would not make videos. I would just do screenshot tutorials or written tutorials. And every time they come out with new updates and new software, I would just help create tutorials for them, submit it. Because what people don't realize is that the software engineers and the co-founders and the developers for the project, they are good at coding and software engineering. They are not good at, like, public relations stuff. They're not good at making tutorials. They're not good at making videos. They're not good at making content. They are good at creating software. So if you go in and fill the roles, right, that they have, that's how I got started. I'll even share this with your audience. When I first started, the first cryptocurrency that I volunteered to work for was for a project called NXT, and they were like the first blockchain 2.0. They were the first cryptocurrency to come out that had a different technology than Bitcoin. And then the one that came after that is called Ethereum. So I helped to volunteer on both of those projects in the early years, and I actually received a bunch of tokens for a donation because I was just creating videos and tutorials on how to use the NXT software. Some of the community started donating tokens to me, and those tokens are worth over $100,000 now, $100,000 US dollars now, just because I took the time to volunteer and do that. At that time, I did not get paid for it in US dollars or in Bitcoin, but I did receive NXT tokens for it from the community members who appreciated what I was doing. Okay? And now I've had people in the NXT community reach out to me and ask me if they can pay me to help them with the marketing and do a bunch of stuff, because they just got through raising like $15 million. Right? So there's members of that community that reach out to me and say, hey man, you were the first guy to start making tutorials and videos and educating the public about NXT, and now that they've raised $15 million and now taking the blockchain to another level, right? They ask me if I can come back and help them with that. So that's the first thing I would do, is that if I was living in a place where I did not have the money, or if I did have the money and I did not want to risk that money, I would go look for the project that I would like to work on and that I believe in, and I would help them with their project in any way that I can. I would even reach out, and if I did not know how I can help them, I would just contact their development team or their community manager or their marketing manager or whoever's in charge of it, and I would just ask them, hey, what can I do to help? You know, this is my talent here. What can I do to help your project? I really like it, and I want to be able to help out. I would not ask for money or anything first. I would just ask them, how can I help out? And once they see what you're doing, and once they trust you, then I would start talking about like a salary or negotiate the money part, right? Like all the guys, there's like a dozen guys that I know of that we all volunteered to help with the NXT project, and now I know all those guys that originally that I worked with, they're all multi-millionaires now because of that, because of their early volunteerism in these different projects that they worked on. So I hope that answers your question of how to get started.
This goes to show that Ready, Fire, Aim works. Get involved, prove your worth, add value to the project, and then begin to monetize your skills and start getting paid. I mean, no one is going to think that you're great just because you think that you're great. It takes, you need to prove yourself in the real world.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting, Lior, is that it can be in any listener right now, and I'll use this as an example, any listener right now that is listening to this broadcast and they see that your channel is involved with cryptocurrencies now, if they just come and just take the audio, like if I was some young kid, some high school kid in Africa somewhere where my family didn't have any money, I would take this broadcast and I would transcribe it, correctly in English, and I would submit it to you each time you did a broadcast. I would do it so often that you just couldn't help ignore me. You wouldn't be able to ignore me anymore, and eventually you would have to hire me on as a full-time transcriptionist for your channel because I'm doing such a great job. I would just submit it. Like I would just take the audio right now, I would transcribe, I would submit it to you and say, hey, Leo, I listened to your show, here's a transcription of it. If you need any more done, let me know. And I would just keep doing that because someone like you or like any of your affiliate channels, they're not going to be able to see if somebody's doing quality transcription work for you. And let's say that they just take it and translate to Chinese or translate to Spanish or another popular language, right? That's creating value. That's the thing, is that if you want to come into this space, create value for other people so that they can see that, and then they'll point you in the right direction. Even if you didn't hire that person that did the transcription for you, I'm sure that in your network you would know other channels that would hire that type of talent. And right away, within a month or so, that person could be having a $200 or $300 a month job. And it may not be a lot in America or in some of the Western countries, but in some place like Vietnam, where I come from, or in a place like some of the countries in Africa that are not doing so well, that's a huge sum of money. And especially when you can send to them in Bitcoins or in Ethers or in Dash or anything like that, they get paid right away.
Where can people check out more of your work?
If people, we are a cryptocurrency investing channel. We were the first channel that I know of that started broadcasting about cryptocurrency investing. And the best place to follow us is at www.cryptocurrency.market/newsletter. And it's spelled just like you hear it. www.cryptocurrency.market/newsletter. Sign up to our newsletter there. The first few videos that we send you are going to be videos to explain about Bitcoin. And then after that, then it'll just be the most updated videos that we have.
Thank you very much for taking the time, Ty. It's been a great interview.
Thank you.
This interview will definitely provoke emotions, both of agitation and irritation on one hand, and of open-mindedness on the other. Our main focal point was the role of government in shaping 2018's cryptocurrency market in light of the fact that government fiat currencies do command an almost monopoly-like dominance over currency exchanges today. both Ty and I see the realistic fact for most people 45 and above, which is that government is a way of life for them. They've been living under the rule of law and government when it comes to currency all their lives, and therefore they would ascribe a premium value to the supposed validity of government issued money they have thus far. Therefore, it looks to us like government will look to have their own blockchain set up, all governments throughout the world, obviously some faster than others. Bitcoin is also bringing to the surface the pros and cons of complete decentralization. When people have no obligation to listen to others, they have little incentive to settle for less than what they want exactly. In a democracy, everyone sacrifices for the good of the whole, but in Bitcoin, for example, the minority can just choose to opt out and launch another cryptocurrency. This process has been called a hard fork. We are going to see how complete decentralization works compared with a government or a governance system. 2018 promises to be an interesting year, and I think that the rags to riches stories that we've been hearing thus far will only intensify. If you want to have the best opportunity and the best chance to be a part of this industry on the ground floor, because there's less than 1 million people involved right now in a world that has about 4 billion people on a bank account, and about 4 billion unbankable people, which are even in more need to get on the blockchain. Go to wealthresearchgroup.com/rocket, ROCKET, and check out our special report on the rocketing blockchain technology, on the cryptocurrencies, on the highest paying jobs, and the future of this sector. Thank you for tuning in.